In the 2020 NFL season, the NFL announced the NFL 100 all-time team, and the first players to be announced were the running backs. The oldest of the group was Earl Clark, who played from 1931 to 1938. Earl Dutch Clark is the most all-around player in the history of football, but before you can truly understand his greatness, you must put yourself in the time period of his career. In 1931, there weren't even league leaders for passing or rushing, so you have to look at 1932 statistics. The game was different back then, and quote-unquote quarterbacks were not the dart slingers they are now. The passing leader, Arnie Herber, attempted 101 passes, completing 36.6% for 639 yards, 9 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. He was one of 5 players in the league to have a touchdown to interception ratio greater than or equal to 1. The rushing leader, Cliff Battles, ran for 576 yards and 3 touchdowns. You may be wondering how. How were these numbers so low? Well, let's look at the 1932 NFL Championship game. In 1932, Chicago and Portsmouth were tied in the standings, so they created the NFL's first ever playoff game to declare an NFL champion. The teams had played each other twice already that season, but tied both times. The game was played on an 80-yard indoor field, and the goalposts had to be moved from the end line to the goal line. The game of football was changed forever because of this game. While it was the first playoff game in NFL history, that is not the most important detail to come out of the 1932 NFL Championship. In 1932, the rule for passing the football was that you can only throw the football forward if you are 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage. During the game, Bronco Nagurski threw a 2-yard touchdown pass to Red Grange, nicknamed the Galloping Ghost and the Wheaton Iceman. The Spartans claimed that Nagurski was not 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage, but their pleas were not heard. That following season, the NFL changed the rule so that you can throw a forward pass from anywhere behind the line of scrimmage. This made it significantly easier to throw the football. Remember, they weren't lining up in shotgun like we do now. From under center, players could now throw directly off the snap, rather than having to lateral the football or take an extreme drop back. So looking back at how the offenses were so stagnant, it is clear that it was very difficult to successfully pass the football. But why was it so hard to run it? When everybody on the defense knows that you are going to be running the football, you have to get creative. Every single play on offense was meticulously designed to trick the defense to gain a few yards, always incorporating misdirections, laterals, fake jet sweeps, multiple pulling blockers. Run plays were nothing like they are now. Watching the film, you can barely tell who has the football because almost every time there are 4 players running in completely different directions. So now that you understand the time period, let's look at Earl Dutch Clark's career. Dutch Clark started his career in 1931, playing for the Portsmouth Spartans. In his first season, he rushed for 9 touchdowns and was named First Team All-Pro. The next season, he was once again named First Team All-Pro, and he accumulated 568 yards and 6 touchdowns. Now, before you get confused, I will say that many people list Dutch as a quarterback, but that is more due to the fact that he was the team's signal caller. In addition to being the quarterback/running back, Dutch was the designated drop kicker, the last of his kind. A drop kick is like a field goal, but rather than placing the ball on the ground, the player drops the ball, lets it bounce, then kicks it through the upright. It is worth the same amount of points as a standard field goal or extra point. Throughout his career, Dutch also played defense, and while defensive stats were not kept, Dutch has been seen in film to have multiple pass breakups and possibly an interception. After the 1932 season, he quit playing football to go back and coach the Colorado School of Mines. In 1934, however, the Portsmouth Spartans moved to Detroit and became the Lions. They signed Dutch Clark to the team. That season, Clark led the NFL in total offense with 1,146 yards and 8 rushing touchdowns. He was second in the league in points scored with 73 and was once again a first-team All-Pro quarterback. And in their 8th game of the season, the Lions rushed for an NFL record 426 yards. That is an NFL record to this very day. And in a game against the Cincinnati Reds, Dutch rushed for 194 yards in a single game against Cincinnati in 1934. Third most for a Lion all time. That victory against Cincinnati extended the Lions' shutout streak to 7 games. That number has never been matched. That Reds team is arguably the worst team in NFL history and went 0-8 that year. But in 1935, Clark was once again the unanimous team captain and led the NFL in scoring. He led the Lions to the NFL championship game and had a 42-yard touchdown run in the second quarter. The Lions defeated the Giants 26-7. Following the season, the Los Angeles Times wrote Clark has been acclaimed as the greatest back in the history of the game. Dutch was described as a rabbit in the brush, and Red Grange called him the hardest man in football to tackle. And his coach, Potsy Clark, once stated, "For one thing, he knows what plays to call. He is one of the most intelligent men who ever played football. He knows the game thoroughly. He rarely makes mistakes. But his main asset is his ability to gain the confidence of players. He makes them absolutely believe in him. They never question any play he calls. They regard him as infallible. This confidence is not misplaced. I have never known Dutch to criticize any player. Anytime a play goes wrong, he takes the entire blame, regardless of who is responsible." And in 1936, Dutch began to question retirement. But he was once again a first-team All-Pro and led the league in points. In 1937, Clark took over as a player coach and led the league in rushing touchdowns, and for the 6th time in a row, he was named first-team All-Pro quarterback. Clark would only play one more season, but he was a backup who rushed only 7 times and attempted 12 passes. After that season, Dutch Clark retired as the NFL's all-time leading scorer with 369 points. In 1951, he was inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame as a member of the inaugural class, and in 1963, he was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame as a member of the inaugural class. Earl Dutch Clark does not have the numbers players have today, but he was a pivotal player in the developmental years of the NFL. He is probably the most versatile threat in the history of football and absolutely deserves to be on the NFL 100 all-time team. If you liked this video and would like to see more videos, hit that like button down below, and also make sure to subscribe and check out the other legend biographies that we have on the Worst Take channel.